Hello, sleepy dreamer. How you doing? Tonight I'll be your guide, here to ease you into calm, restful sleep. Before we get started, remember to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss future scary bedtime stories. Share in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Also, let me know if there's a story you'd love to hear next. I never believed terror could shatter me the way it did that night. But it did. My name is Evan Mercer. I was 21 then, and my existence felt like it was unraveling. My father disappeared from our lives when I was 12, leaving my mother to burn herself out just to keep us afloat. By the time I enrolled at college in Portland, student debt was already crushing me. Rent went unpaid, my part-time job at the grocery store barely covered food, and I had begun skipping meals just to afford textbooks. That was why when I came across his profile, I didn't swipe left. Colin Rourke, age 43. Bio read, seeking loyalty, $800 weekly allowance. No intimacy required, just companionship. His picture showed him dressed sharply in a blazer, though his face was obscured behind a rubber mask, a warped old man's face sagging as though melting. It was grotesque, bordering on ridiculous, yet disturbingly unsettling. Still, my mind didn't linger on the mask. It clung to the $800. I swiped right. Seconds later, a notification appeared. It's a match. Almost immediately, a message lit up my phone. Colin. Hello, Evan. I've been waiting for someone like you. Me? That's fast. Hi, Colin. I don't waste time. You want this arrangement to work, don't you? $800 a week. No strings. Just spend time with me. My throat felt dry as I stared at the screen. Me? You're serious? Just hanging out, Colin. Precisely. A bright young man like you should be compensated for his company. You won't regret it. On my fridge, the rent notice was taped with the words "Final Warning" scribbled in red ink. I thought of my mother, forcing herself into double shifts when she was far too sick to handle them. I typed back, "Me. Okay. When do you want to meet?" Our first encounter was public, at a rooftop bar downtown. Colin wore a long dark coat, gloves, and most unnerving of all, his mask. Not the sort of medical mask people wore casually, but the same grotesque wrinkled rubber one from his profile photo. I laughed awkwardly when I saw him. Is this some kind of joke? He tilted his head slightly. His voice was calm, smooth. It helps me stay who I am. You'll adjust. He paid for everything with ease, drinks, food, even a ride back to my dorm. He never touched me, or even lingered close. He only asked me questions about my past, my goals, and whether I had fears. Looking back, that last question should have been the warning. The arrangement carried on for 3 weeks. Every Friday, he transferred $800 to my PayPal. Every Saturday night we met. Always masked, always staring with those pale eyes behind rubber folds. Sometimes we ate in upscale restaurants. Other times he drove me along the waterfront in his polished black car. He never once removed the mask. One night I half joked, "Do you ever take that thing off?" He leaned back in his seat, watching me. Not with people I value. The mask lets me see them as they truly are, what they look like when fear arrives. I laughed nervously, brushing it off as metaphor, but his tone was flat, absent of humor. The night it all turned, he invited me to what he described as a private gathering. Not exactly a party, he said, but more like a small meeting of those who understood him. Everything inside me screamed no, but with tuition due in 2 days, the money blinded me. I agreed. He picked me up around midnight in his black SUV. The further we drove, the darker it became until the city faded behind us and only endless forest roads stretched ahead. The dashboard light gave his mask a faint glow, deepening its wrinkles, making it look alive. "Where are we going?" I asked. "You'll see," he said softly. "It will be unforgettable." The house loomed enormous and isolated, swallowed by tall trees, its windows dark and empty. Unease knotted in my stomach as he led me inside. A strange stench filled the air, metallic, rotten, with a chemical tang. Only a single bulb flickered in the hallway, pulsing like a heartbeat. I froze. "Colin, I don't feel right about this." His gloved hand pressed to my shoulder. "Relax. You're safe with me." That was the final moment I felt safe. Hands seized me from behind, I shouted, kicking and thrashing, but at least 3 people overpowered me, dragging me into a concrete room and strapping me to a chair. My voice cracked, my breathing ragged. "Colin, what is this?" He stood calmly in the corner, mask faintly aglow. "Let's begin," he said softly. The first burn was searing. A red-hot rod pressed against my arm, the pain erupting like fire. My scream ricocheted off the walls. Through the blur of tears, I still saw Colin observing, head tilted like I was an experiment. "Do you know why I wear this mask?" he asked. I sobbed, choking. "Please stop. Because it shows me what you really are when fear strips you bare." The hours after dissolved into hell. They didn't only torture me, they played with me. They offered water, freed one hand, whispered comfort, then resumed. One man pulled out nails and a hammer. The first strike against my finger disappeared beneath my own screams. The agony wasn't even the worst part. It was Colin's eyes behind the mask, cold, lifeless, void of anything human. At some point they abandoned me. Maybe they thought I was too broken to run, but adrenaline beats pain. With raw, torn wrists, I twisted until the rope gave way. My bare feet padded silently across the cold floor as I staggered down the hall. Their laughter drifted from another room. Near the exit, I froze. The mask hung on a hook. For a moment, I swore it pulsed, watching. Trembling, I forced myself forward, tore the door open and sprinted into the night. The cold air stung my wounds as I ran barefoot down the gravel road, vision blurred with tears and blood. Somehow, I made it to a gas station, then to the police. At first, they doubted me. Who wouldn't? My account sounded unreal, like something from a horror film. But when they saw the burns, the slashed skin, the crushed fingers, the officer's expression changed. "Tell me everything," he said, so I did. Days later, the raid came. When they arrested Colin Rourke, he was in his mansion, swaying to music, wine glass in hand, mask still in place. As they cuffed him, he turned his gaze toward me. For the first time, I saw his uncovered face. You'd expect a monster, but he looked unremarkable. His skin smooth, jaw sharp, far younger than his age. But his eyes were the same, soulless, hollow, unfeeling. He leaned close as they pulled him away. "See you soon," he whispered. He sits behind bars now. Dozens of other victims came forward after me, stories of torment, manipulation, twisted games. His wealthy family is already bending the justice system, hiring elite lawyers, painting him as misunderstood. But I know the truth. Even now, when I close my eyes, I hear the hammer hitting bone. I smell scorched flesh. I see that mask. Colin might be locked away, but his shadow isn't. And every time I walk alone at night, I sense it, lingering just behind me, waiting. I never imagined one swipe on a dating app could redirect my life so completely. At 22, I was broke, exhausted, and buried under a quiet kind of shame. My parents had divorced when I was 16. Mom remarried and moved across the country. Dad, who once adored me, sank into bitterness and alcohol until our conversations faded to nothing. I was renting a room in a share house in West End, Brisbane, splitting my time between daytime shifts as a barista and night classes at university, convincing myself daily that my future would eventually improve. But the burden of rent, bills, and loneliness pressed harder than any hopeful promise. When my roommate Tasha joked one night, "Just get yourself a sugar daddy, Lila. Half the girls I know already do," I laughed it off. Yet later, scrolling through Tinder in bed, the suggestion lingered, almost too easy to ignore. That's how I matched with Adrian Cross. His profile read 46, though the photos displayed a man in flawless suits, silver hair slicked back, piercing blue eyes, and a smile designed to captivate. His bio stated simply, "Searching for someone worth spoiling." No pressure, no games. Seconds after I swiped right, his message appeared. "Hello, Lila. Your smile could light up any room. May I take you to dinner?" I felt both anxious and strangely relieved. I nearly canceled. The evening of the dinner, I stood before the mirror in our cramped bathroom, wearing a borrowed black dress, trying to steady my shaking hands as I applied lipstick. Tasha leaned against the doorway, smirking. "Relax. Worst case, he's a creep and you block him. Best case, you get champagne and rent money." I forced a laugh, though my stomach twisted. The restaurant was an upscale spot on Queen Street I'd never dared to enter before. Adrian was already there, rising smoothly as I approached, pulling out a chair like a scene from a film. "Leela," he greeted warmly, his voice low and assured. "You look stunning." Embarrassed, I mumbled thanks, though his gaze didn't cheapen me, at least not then. The dinner felt dreamlike. He ordered champagne for himself, but urged me to have sparkling water. "I never drink when I want genuine conversation," he said softly. "I'd rather know you sober." He asked about my classes, my hopes, my childhood. When I faltered speaking of my father, he didn't pry, only nodded thoughtfully. By dessert, he slid an envelope across the table. "For your rent," he said, Just a gift. Nothing more. Just let me see you again. Inside was $700 in cash. I should have felt guilt. Instead, relief so sharp it nearly brought tears. Adrian didn't behave like the men Tasha had warned about. He never pressed for sex. He called himself a mentor. He brought me to his penthouse in Ascot, to elegant restaurants, to art galleries where he whispered about brushstrokes as if he owned the canvases. At times, though, his questions grew strange. "Ever thought about dying?" he asked once while driving me home. City lights streaked past the window. His tone was casual, almost playful. "I suppose," I muttered. "Better to die in comfort than chained in misery," he said with a smile as though it were a joke. But his words lingered. Despite his wealth and calm, something unnerving clung to him. The way his stare lasted too long, or how his hand brushed my shoulder a moment too late to be accidental. Still, I stayed. I depended on him. By the third month, my emotions blurred. He was twice my age, yet when his eyes met mine across a dinner table, I felt chosen, rare, but cracks formed. One evening I asked teasingly, "So, do you see other girls like me?" He tilted his head, amused. "Layla, you are incomparable. Don't reduce yourself." I pushed further. He leaned closer, whispering, "If you must know, yes, I meet people. I help people. You aren't the first, but you might be the last." The words chilled me, though I couldn't decide if from dread or intrigue. Not long after, I noticed a blonde girl, even younger than me, maybe 19. I spotted her once at a cafe Adrian had taken me to, sitting alone. Another time outside the university library. Each time she avoided my eyes. Then one night, I saw them together. He with his hand lightly guiding her into a restaurant in New Farm. My stomach churned. At our next meeting in his apartment, I joked weakly, "So Adrian, I saw you with a very pretty girl." His lips curled faintly. "Clara," he said. "She's troubled, like you once were." "A friend." My voice caught. "A friend. Don't be hurt, Leela. What you and I have is different." I wasn't sure I believed him, but jealousy burned. 2 weeks later, he invited me to what he called a small gathering. When I arrived, it was just him, Clara, and me. The air felt heavy. Clara barely spoke, her glances toward him filled with both fear and devotion. Adrian charmed, poured sparkling water into crystal glasses, told stories. In the kitchen, I whispered, "Are you all right?" She gave a faint smile. "He's saving me. He rescued me." Her tone was flat, rehearsed. Later, Adrian suggested we see his collection room in the basement. The air grew colder, the walls concrete, lined with shelves of wine and odd artifacts, dimly lit. Clara stood uneasy against the wall. "I want to celebrate," Adrian murmured. Stepping behind her, he whispered, "Perfection." I blinked, confused, until he drove a knife into her back. Her scream was muffled by his hand. Blood sprayed the polished floor. My body locked, lungs rigid. When she collapsed, he turned to me calmly, eyes gleaming. "This is the only way to save her true beauty," he whispered. I wanted to flee, scream, but my body betrayed me. Instead, I helped. I don't remember why. Fear, shock, or his control buried deeper than I admitted. I helped drag her body, scrubbed blood, then stumbled away. For days I drowned myself in alcohol, pills, anything to numb. I ignored Tasha, silenced my phone, but the images never left. Clara's eyes, the echo of her last cry, then the sirens, the pounding on doors. When police came, I stood frozen. My lips moved before thought caught up. Yes, I helped hide her body. The officer froze, but I realized maybe I hadn't spoken. Maybe it was only in my head. The trial arrived months later. Newspapers blared his name. Adrian Cross, 47, financial advisor charged with murder. They detailed Clara's body, discovered weeks later in a landfill, first stuffed into a freezer. They wrote about me, the student companion, the girl too ensnared to walk away. In court, he glanced at me once, just once, and his look said it all. "You will never escape me." Even now I wonder, was I his victim or his accomplice? Some nights I scroll back to that very first message, the words glowing like a curse. "Would you let me take you to dinner?" I still can't decide if I ever truly had a choice. I never believed I'd actually go through with it. I was a broke college student renting a dingy 2-bedroom flat with a roommate who constantly paid rent late and left towers of dirty plates stacked in the sink like a leaning sculpture. Between tuition, endless textbooks, and absurd grocery prices, I was sinking. My part-time shift at the campus bookstore hardly covered bills, and I'd begun scraping coins from my car's cup holder just to afford ramen. That's when the profile appeared. Not an advertisement, an actual Tinder profile. Marcus, 46, seeking a sugar baby. $700 weekly. No intimacy, just company and simple tasks. I stared at his photos far too long. If he was 46, then I was elderly. He looked early 30s, maybe younger. Clean cut, sharp features, dark hair slicked neatly to one side, far too polished. His bio was minimal and direct. No cheesy sayings, no flexing gym shots, no fishing photos like the rest. Just those words, $700 weekly, no sex. It screamed scam or something worse. Yet $700 was more than I earned in an entire month. I swiped right. Almost instantly a message arrived. Marcus, hello there, darling. I recoiled at the word darling. It sounded like the slimy thing men at bars whispered right before they touched your back without permission. But $700 was still $700, and I was desperate. Me? Hi. The chat began harmless. He asked about college, about my major. I told him psychology, though really I was just trying to make it through alive. He claimed to run his own business. I asked what kind, but he dodged specifics, only saying it kept him occupied. Something about him was unnervingly smooth. His texts were crisp, perfectly written, as if proofread before sending. Still, he never crossed a line, never made it sexual. Then came the shock. Marcus, what's your Cash App? I'll send the first week in advance. My pulse raced. I typed my handle with trembling fingers. A minute later, my phone buzzed. $700 received. I stared at the alert, waiting for it to vanish, expecting an error, but it didn't. Me. Wow, okay. So what exactly do you want in return? I lingered on the screen until his typing bubble appeared. Marcus, just a few small errands. Nothing improper, nothing uncomfortable. Me. Like what? Marcus, first one is easy. Pick up a package, drop it at my house. That's it. I almost laughed. It sounded like the setup to a bad crime flick. $700 just to move a box. No way. Me. From where? Marcus, I'll text you the address. Not through Tinder. Do you have a number? My brain screamed warning signs, but broke, restless and curious. I gave him my number. Seconds later, a text arrived. Unknown. Here's the pickup location. Here's my house address too. I'm not home, but a spare key's under the red flower pot near the door. Leave the package on the coffee table. Lock the door both entering and leaving. I read the text 3 times. Odd, sure, but if he wanted something dropped inside, at least it wasn't some deserted warehouse. Still, I hesitated. Me. All right, heading over. Pulling from my driveway, my phone buzzed again. Marcus, I'm serious. Lock the door both times, don't forget. The phrasing unsettled me. The pickup was in a rough part of town where sidewalks cracked beneath weeds and street lamps flickered like weak stars. His address pointed to a sagging chain-link fence, the gate clinging to one hinge. The house looked abandoned, peeling paint, windows boarded. I nearly turned back. Then a huge man appeared in the doorway, shoulders wide, tattoos crawling across his arms, his head scraping the frame. You here for Marcus's package? He asked, voice like gravel. Yeah, I stammered from the curb. Stay there. He vanished inside. My heart pounded. The street was empty. When he returned, he carried a small cardboard box, one corner stained dark. Pop your trunk, he said. I obeyed. He placed it gently inside. There you go. Thanks, I muttered, inching toward the driver's seat. He stopped, narrowing his eyes. One more thing. Watch out. I didn't respond. I drove. Marcus's house was the opposite. A mansion with stone columns, trimmed hedges and grass so flawless it looked fake. I retrieved the box, found the flower pot key, and stepped in. The air reeked of expensive cologne, gleaming furniture, carved wood, velvet cushions. Everything screamed wealth. I set the package on the coffee table. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing somewhere. I froze. My phone buzzed. Marcus, don't answer calls unless it's Marvin. Confused, I followed the ringing into an office. A phone buzzed on a desk. Caller ID, Marcus. I stumbled back, left it ringing, and locked up as I fled. That was just the beginning. Weeks blurred. Drive a BMW to a park, leave it, and return in another vehicle. Meet a man named Arturo at a diner. Collect a locked case, and return it to the same crumbling house. Sit with Arturo for hours while Marcus texted updates. Each time, the money arrived. Transfers immediate and exact. By the month's end, I'd pocketed $3,500. It became addictive. Frightening, but addictive. Then one night, a new text woke me. "Marcus, stay at my house tonight. $1,000. My gut sank. Me, why? Marcus, just follow the rules. List is on the table. Don't break them, you'll be safe. I told myself it was fine. One night. Just money. The mansion looked the same. Too pristine. On the dining table sat a handwritten note weighed with glass. Rules: lock the door on entry. Answer only calls from Marvin. Do not run faucets between 9 and 11. Do not open the door for anyone after 10, regardless what they say. If the hallway closet is open, sleep in the library. If closed, any bedroom works. The gardener arrives at midnight. If he taps the windows, hide. Turn the TV to static. Let it run all night. Don't forget, use the fridge. Payment in the morning. Good night. I reread them 3 times. My skin prickled. These weren't mere precautions. They were rituals. I brushed my teeth at 8:50. Checked the closet open, so library it was. I locked the doors. At 10:16, the bell rang. "This is the police. Open up." I froze. "It's urgent. Open the door or we'll force entry." Rule 4 echoed. "Do not open." I stayed silent. Then another voice. "It's Marcus. Let me in." My blood chilled. He had a key. Why would he need me? For an hour the bell rang. Voices shifted. Demands repeated. All wrong. Eventually I drifted into uneasy sleep. Morning came. The smell of coffee drew me to the kitchen. There was Marcus, cooking eggs casually. "Morning," he said. He looked exactly like his pictures. Too exact. I forced down food, excused myself, and left. Back home, unpacking, I realized I still had the rules list. I read it again. My stomach dropped. Turn the TV to static and let it play all night. Don't forget. I hadn't done it. My phone buzzed. Another $1,000 payment. Then a message. "Marcus, I'm out of town. Back next week. No errands till then." My hands shook. If he was away, who stood in that kitchen? Another buzz. Unknown. Forget something? Attached was a photo. Marcus, or whoever he was, standing before a TV of static. Then another picture. The outside of my apartment. Watch out. I didn't sleep. Every creak made me jolt. I clutched my phone, waiting. The knock came eventually. Soft, deliberate against my bedroom window. I nearly screamed. But I didn't. I sat frozen, praying those rules hadn't followed me home. I was 22 when it unfolded. I wasn't completely sheltered. Not anymore. I'd already witnessed how merciless life could be. Bills piled up like walls I couldn't climb, and my part-time shift at a bakery barely kept me afloat, let alone covering rent. My parents were in another region, battling their own hardships, and leaning on them wasn't an option. I remember lying on my mattress one night, staring at my shattered phone screen, wondering how people my age were posting pictures from Ibiza while I was living on noodles for the 3rd night in a row. That was the moment the idea of a sugar daddy crept into my mind. It sounded effortless, almost laughably simple. There were entire blogs, viral TikTok clips, even podcasts where young women joked about older men paying for their handbags, apartments, and even tuition. You don't even have to do anything. One girl claimed in a video I saw, "They're just lonely. They'll pay just to have company." Lonely, paying, company. Those 3 words took root in my thoughts. That night, after hours of scrolling, I registered on a site I'll call Lux Companions. I crafted a profile. University student, kind, bubbly, seeking mentorship and friendship. Discretion a must. I uploaded 2 carefully selected selfies, modest but flattering enough to attract interest. Within 24 hours, my inbox overflowed. Most of the messages were exactly as I expected. Older men promising allowances for dates. Some were crude, some were pitiful, some made me want to shower after reading them. But then there was one. His username was Sterling88. His message stood out. Simple, respectful, unsettlingly ordinary. "Hi Maya, you seem authentic, and I like that. I'm not searching for anything indecent. I want companionship, meals, conversation, maybe someone I can confide in. I'll support you financially in exchange. No demands, no ties. If you're open, let's meet for coffee first. Public place? My treat." I studied his profile picture. He was mid-50s, maybe pushing 60. Tailored suit, silver streaked hair. a smile balanced between warm and practiced. His bio described him as a corporate advisor, divorced, no children. It appeared safe, or as safe as such a thing could. I told myself, if it's strange, I'll leave. It's only coffee. The next day, I picked the busiest cafe downtown. My pulse raced the whole way there. When I spotted him by the window, I nearly turned back, but he rose the second he noticed me, greeting me with a warm smile. "Maya," I nodded. "Edward," he said, extending his hand. "Thanks for coming." We sat together. He didn't leer. He didn't throw sleazy remarks about my looks. He asked about my studies, my family, my plans after college. He spoke of literature, films, traveling. It felt half like an interview, half like a casual date, but not unpleasant. After an hour, he said evenly, "I'd like to see you again. I can offer $500 weekly if you join me for dinners or outings." My throat tightened. $500. That was my rent in one breath. I heard myself say yes. For the first month, everything went smoothly. Edward was generous, courteous, even charming. He took me to upscale restaurants, always public. He wired money without hesitation. He never pressured me beyond brief touches, holding my hand, a kiss on the cheek at parting. I convinced myself, this isn't bad, this is manageable. But subtle things began gnawing at me. One evening when I laughed at something, I caught his eyes locked on me too intently, as if he were engraving every detail in his memory. Another time he asked, "Do you tell your friends about me?" I answered no, and his satisfied grin made it clear that was exactly what he wanted. Then there was the time I mentioned possibly moving closer to campus. The next day, he sent me the exact address of a building I'd browsed weeks earlier but never shared. When I asked how he knew, he brushed it aside. "You must have mentioned it." I remember everything, but I couldn't recall ever saying it. By the third month, things shifted. We were at a dim Italian restaurant, candles flickering. He reached across, squeezed my hand. "You make me happy, Maya," he said. "Happier than I've been in years." I gave an uneasy smile. "I don't want to share you," he continued softly. I stiffened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I don't want you seeing other men, not even guys your age. I want this exclusive." His gaze locked on me. "Can you promise me that, Edward? Promise me?" he pressed. I swallowed hard. "Okay, fine." His grip loosened. "Good girl," he said. That night, outside my door, I found a small box. Inside was a brand new iPhone, still sealed, with a note. "So you never miss my calls." He observed I had never given him my address. Over the following weeks, his behavior escalated. He began messaging every hour. If I didn't reply instantly, he'd write, "Where are you? Who's with you? Why aren't you answering?" One evening after closing at the bakery, I spotted him waiting in his car across the street, smiling as though it were normal. When I confronted him, he replied, "I only wanted to be sure you got home safe." I wanted to believe him. Truly, I did. But one night I woke at 2 a.m. to my phone buzzing. It was him. Dozens of texts. "Are you awake? Respond. I know you're up. Why are you ignoring me? Don't make me come over." I stared at my locked door, my heart pounding, terrified he might be outside. The night everything collapsed, he invited me on what he called a weekend retreat. A cabin outside the city, just us, no interruptions. My instincts screamed, no, but rent was looming, and I dreaded provoking him. So I agreed. The drive wound through endless dark roads lined with trees. He spoke the entire way about how peaceful it would be, how I didn't need anyone else. When we arrived, the cabin was beautiful yet isolated. No neighbors, no signal. Inside, everything was set. Wine, glasses, candles, fire already burning. Too precise, too staged. At dinner, he poured wine. I only mimed sipping. "Do you love me, Maya?" he asked abruptly. I coughed. "Edward, this isn't love." His smile faded. "It will be. You'll see." Later, when he stepped into the bathroom, I checked my phone. No bars, no help. That's when I noticed a locked door in the back. Curiosity clawed at me. When he finally fell asleep, I slipped the key from his jacket. The door creaked open, and what I saw paralyzed me. Dozens of photos, me walking to class, at the bakery, with my friends, in my apartment lobby, even asleep in my own bed. I stumbled back, gasping. That's when I heard his voice. "You weren't supposed to see that." I spun. Edward stood there, eyes icy, a knife gleaming in his grip. "You don't understand," he said evenly. "I protect you, I keep you safe, and in return you stay with me forever." My pulse thundered so loud I could barely think. "Edward, please put it down. We can talk." He moved closer. "I've already decided. You're not leaving me." Panic surged. Instinctively, I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass bottle, and smashed it against his arm. He yelled, dropping the blade. I bolted through the door into the woods, barefoot, freezing, branches clawing my skin. I didn't look back. I ran until headlights glowed ahead. A truck slowed, the driver rolling down his window. "God, are you all right?" I sobbed. "Please, help me." That night, police raided the cabin. They uncovered the photos. They found a box beneath his bed filled with locks of hair, bits of clothing, tokens from me, maybe from others too. Edward was arrested. I never saw him again. I relocated, changed numbers, erased every Lux Companion's account. Yet sometimes I still wake convinced someone's watching. Sometimes I glance at windows expecting his silhouette in the dark. And when my phone buzzes unexpectedly, dread coils inside me before I even check, because deep down I know if he ever gets out, he'll come back for me. I never imagined I'd ever give online dating another shot. After enduring a line of uncomfortable meetups, endless ghosted conversations, and one total disaster of a dinner where the man showed up drunk and asked me to lend him cash, I swore off those apps for good. Still, loneliness has a way of sneaking in when you least expect it. My name is Clara Mendez. I'm 26, living in Seabrook, Maine. I rent a small flat close to the docks. Nothing fancy, just enough space for me and my cat. I rent a small flat close to the docks. Nothing fancy, just enough space for me and my cat. I work as a proofreader at a local magazine, a position that doesn't pay well, but at least keeps me steady. My friends were either married, having kids, or drowning in 60-hour work weeks, and nights inside my quiet apartment began to feel unbearable. So against all logic, I installed a new dating app that promised real connections. Of course, real usually translated into older men with too much cash, looking to buy someone younger's time. I mocked it at first, but curiosity wore me down. That's when I matched with him. Adrian Cross, 42. His profile stood apart. No tacky mirror shots, no cliché sayings, just neat images of him in tailored suits, dining at elegant restaurants, and walking a sleek black Labrador down a coastal trail. His face was sharp, his dark hair streaked with gray, and his gaze carried an intensity that unsettled me, while somehow pulling me in. His message arrived within minutes. "You're gorgeous. I'd like to take you someplace nice. No games, no pressure, just dinner and conversation." I should have swiped past it, but I didn't. Something in me wanted to think this time might be different. He picked the restaurant, an upscale spot called Ocean Crest, the kind of place I could never afford. When I arrived, it was strangely quiet. The host greeted me by name, startling me. "This way, Miss Mendez, Mr. Cross is waiting." The dining hall was nearly empty, save for one round table in the middle where Adrian sat alone, a glass of wine in hand. He looked exactly like his photos, crisp suit, precise posture, eyes fixed like they were analyzing me as I walked closer. "Clara," he said with a subtle nod. His voice was deep, measured. "You're even more beautiful in person." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "Thanks. This place is pretty fancy." He gave a slight shrug, expression unreadable. "I prefer privacy when I eat." I booked the whole space. Booked the space? Who does that? The servers glided around like shadows, their expressions empty, movements mechanical. No one spoke unless Adrian lifted a hand. "You didn't need to go through this much effort," I said, trying to ease the tension. "For you?" I did. His gaze locked on me, as though I were pinned under a lens. I laughed uneasily and picked up the menu. "You're making me feel like some kind of specimen." "You're flawless," he said instantly, exactly what I wanted. The words sent a chill through me, though I tried to shake it off. The talking mostly came from me, about my job, my cat, my obsession with scary films. He listened with hardly a blink, replying only when necessary. His face remained a blank mask. I lifted my glass. "So Adrian, be honest, are you secretly a robot built for the end of the world?" To my surprise, he raised his glass as well. "No," he answered flatly. "I'm not." It made me laugh, but unease lingered. Dinner wrapped too soon. He paid in cash. Crisp bills like untouched. "Want to come over?" I asked, shocking myself. My voice trembled, but some part of me was drawn to him despite the clear warning signs. "Yes," he answered smoothly. "I'd like that." We walked toward his sleek black car, but I insisted on taking mine. My old beater looked absurd beside his, but he agreed, climbing into the passenger seat without complaint. His hands were ice when I touched them, rigid, almost unnatural, yet I leaned closer still. We kissed at my door. His lips were soft but deliberate, almost rehearsed. Just as we parted, a blinding light hit us. "What the hell?" I gasped. "Who's that?" Adrian asked calmly, unshaken. I looked up to see my neighbor across the hall, Mr. Doyle. He was in his 60s, balding, always hanging near his door. He stood holding a flashlight pointed straight at us, staring without a word. "Ignore him," I muttered. "He's just odd." Yet the way Doyle's eyes fixed on Adrian made my skin crawl. He wasn't just curious. He was examining him, just like Adrian examined me. Inside, Adrian asked me to turn off the lights. I hesitated but gave in. In darkness, he pulled me close, spinning me lightly. His strength startled me, too precise, too calculated. We ended up in bed, and what came after was fierce, consuming. I drifted asleep in his arms, but something inside me stirred with unease. At around 2 a.m., creaking broke the silence. My place was small, every sound carried. At first I thought pipes, then realized footsteps. "Adrian," I whispered, nudging him. No response. The doorknob turned. A sliver of light cut through. Standing there was Doyle, my unsettling neighbor, gripping a knife that gleamed under the hall's dim light. His face twisted with a mix of fear and fury. Before I could shout, he lunged. Adrian bolted upright, clashing with Doyle's blade. The fight was brutal, chaotic, slamming against the walls. I stumbled back, clutching the blanket. Doyle drove the knife into Adrian's shoulder. I expected blood. Instead, thick black fluid spilled out, tar-like and unnatural. My stomach dropped. The light from the hall weakened Adrian. He moved slower, fighting blindly. Doyle, with shocking strength for his age, drove the blade into Adrian's chest, then his eye. The sound was sickening. Adrian crumpled silently. Doyle let the knife fall, panting. He reached into Adrian's jacket, pulled a folded paper and hurled it at me. My shaking hands opened it. "Terminate Clara Mendez." Tears blurred my sight. "Me? Why? Who? What are you?" Doyle's voice cracked. "I'm your father, Clara. And that thing, it wasn't a man. He was sent to kill you." In a daze, I followed him to his flat across the hall. Inside, my reality fractured. The walls were covered in photos of me. Childhood, high school, university, images I never even knew existed. Pictures of my mother too, alive and smiling. My voice shook. "How? Where did you get these? Tell me everything. Who are you?" His eyes filled with sorrow. "I worked for a syndicate. We built things like him. Machines crafted to look human, trained to kill. When I tried to walk away, they came after me. I barely escaped. Your mother went into hiding. When they couldn't find me, they turned their sights on you." I shook my head hard. "No, this is madness. You're mad." "Darling," he said gently, stepping closer. "I know it's impossible, but you saw it yourself. He wasn't human. You were marked because of me. That's why we must leave tonight. It's not safe here. Your mother is alive. She's waiting." "Waiting where?" I asked. "Outskirts of Montana. Remote. Off their grid. We can be together again." My legs trembled beneath me, my world collapsing in minutes. But when I thought of Adrian's body, the black sludge seeping into my sheets, I realized there was no choice. I threw essentials into a bag, clothes, papers, anything. Doyle, my father, if his words were true, loaded it into his car. We sped into the dark, city lights shrinking behind us. I stared down at the notebook in my lap, my fingers trembling as I wrote everything. Not to remember, but because I feared waking tomorrow and no one believing it ever happened. The road stretched endlessly forward toward a fate I hadn't chosen, but one I had no choice but to face.